Welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, in the wake of Trump and Republican cuts to arts funding in the United States, impacts to creatives were felt immediately. While this is a loss for all of us, these funding cuts are forcing some perhaps long overdue business strategy updates for a range of creative businesses. Hey, Pat.
Yes, James.
What do you call a potato that's a fan of something?
I don't know.
A spectator.
Oh my God. Whoa.
Yep.
Jesus. Okay.
What do you call a Buddhist potato?
I don't know.
A meditator.
How many of these do you have?
I've got too many of them. I'm gonna stop.
Okay.
But that's my entry into the dad joke world. But really, that's not what we're here to talk about. We have more meaningful things to discuss. The ever wonderful Jane Friedman has yet again sparked thought and conversation. And yeah, she's amazing. And I will remind people that a while ago, I can't remember exactly what episode, we talked about loss of arts funding in the US.
Yes.
And we asked the question, will this cause certain arts organizations to actually get better at what they do, to become more business oriented?
Yeah.
And we have a little bit of data. We have a data point.
Great.
To add to this. And so in Jane Friedman's latest email, there's a section of it called, in my humble opinion, the kick in the pants that nonprofit literary presses needed. And this is her report from the AWP conference that was in Baltimore this year. And so before I get into it, do you want to explain, because you've been to the AWP conference.
Yeah, I feel like I've been to two.
Okay, you want to give a quick hit what that is?
Yeah, it's Association of Writers and Writing Programs or something like that. They call it AWP, and it's a giant network of MFA programs and other associated industry professionals who meet once every year in different cities in the US. I don't think there's an international component to it. And they have 15,000 people. So I went to the one in Portland in 2019. I think the attendance was 15 or 16,000. We maxed out the venue basically. And there's all of these, it's several days long, not a week, but there's events before and events after. So close to like 4 or 5 days of stuff. And you go, you have your badge, you pay your conference fee and all that stuff. You find a place to stay nearby, and then you can go see all of your friends in panels. If you know writers, right? There'll be a panel on anything. There's they run on panels, so there's 4 or 5 sort of mid-level writers talking about, say, the struggle narrative in X fiction or whatever, and giving their opinion on stuff like that. I used to go to the poetry panels because those were the most entertaining, because they're like, we're not making any fucking money here, and they're all adjuncts and just talking about the workload and shit. Like it's highly entertaining. I went to
the panel of bitterness.
Yeah, the bitter vetch panel. It was just. Anyway, I love shit like that. I'm a big fan of the conference industry and stuff. Give me my work background, and so it can be very entertaining. It can be disorienting. There's a trade show component with probably I'm not even going to guess, maybe 80 to 100 tables from different small presses, and you can go and pitch your book if you want to. Paul Dry Books gave me a tote bag. Yeah, I'm going to say I charmed Paul Dry. That's how I got that damn tote bag. I promised.
You charmed him dry, huh?
This is in my delusional.
He is one dehiscent guy.
Seems like a nice man, actually, and he gave me a tote bag. So what can I say? It's a very
Yeah.
high quality token. So that's AWP. Does it do anything? Yeah, it puts writers in touch with each other. I've seen some really good presentations there. There's a big, um, what's that word called when they talk about how to teach something? Uh, I forget. Anyway, there's this big sort of aspect of teaching writing because it is
Mhm.
basically MFA programs meeting with each other
Right.
and with publishers and with writers. And there's agents who come. And I saw one of the most stenchiest panels of my life in at an AWP conference in the one in Portland. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very
Oh,
fun.
good for you. All right.
Yeah.
Future segment on the stenchiest panel. We could do the stenchiest panelist competition. But so in this one in Baltimore, of all places, one of the panels was going forward, the future of small presses in America.
Mm,
And it was a bunch of representatives from different independent small presses, pretty much nonprofit, that kind of thing.
yeah.
And Jane just sort of says, here's what various people said, and then kind of gives her thoughts. But there was one that stood out. Um, that really struck me because and it's in the context of that former discussion that we had that hey maybe the loss of this funding is going to force these people to become more business oriented,
Yeah.
which we can then ask the next question, will that change creativity itself or what gets
Wow.
accepted, right? So
Yeah.
but Jane writes, and this is directly quoting from her. I want to give her full attribution, all that kind of stuff. And it's a little bit long, but it really struck me. And it's by Jeffrey Levin, who's at Tupelo Press.
Mm,
And he said recent events have emphasized the need for financial diversification, board accountability, parentheses, and strong boards in the first place, end of parentheses, editorial courage, psychological steadiness. And here's one of the ones that really kind of caught me, and the necessity of building institutions that don't feel small. Quote, indie presses need to ensure we're financially, structurally independent enough to continue. Then he describes 6 pilot models that his press is exploring that include donation and patronage models, mutual aid, crowdfunding, and doing more with backlist assets, not just
ha.
for additional income, but as part of fulfilling their mission and obligation to authors.
Yeah.
We should do something with these books, is what he's saying.
Right.
So in this, there is a strong indication that they're really, one, they're saying we need to, editorial courage. We need to publish things that maybe are difficult to publish. We need to keep doing those kinds of things.
Hmm.
But there's a lot more business-oriented language in here.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
like that.
and obviously I don't have any, I don't know what he said last year if it was completely different. But I like that there's a little bit more business-oriented language because one, self-sufficiency is not a bad thing.
No.
Uh, Especially given the current context here in the US, because the funding that they used to count on is not coming back anytime soon, right? We've got
Yeah.
to have these 2 more elections.
Hmm.
Um, but also, you know, I think one of the issues is that we as creatives can too often fall into creative bubbles,
Yeah.
which this is our thinking is here, and this is what we do, and this is how we do it, and it makes it difficult to kind of break out. And I think when you start thinking from and we do this a lot in our conversations where we talk about creativity and then we talk about business and then we talk about both within the context of each other.
Yeah.
And being a publisher is being in business. It's a
Yeah.
creative bit, but it is a
Yeah.
business. And so I would love to see more support for the arts, certainly.
Hmm.
But I feel like if this is the trend, if this is, a data point that points to a trend, I think that's a healthy thing.
I agree. Well, is Tupelo Press's statement a data point period? No, but what it is to me is kind of a an expression of this is a bit of a situation we're in, and the things that we have to look at is honestly what every small business has always had to look at, which is diversification, being independent from a particular funding source, and using the assets you already have and repurposing them in many ways
Mm.
is my take on that. You can't repurpose, say, a book by an author you published 3 years ago, but you can certainly market it again. You could certainly look for more opportunities to get a second printing going, and market
Mhm.
the shit out of that. Or maybe marketing is the wrong thing. I think there could be, and this is me just spitballing. I think there probably could be all of these unrealized assets in the authors they previously published
Mm.
who are sitting there going, great, I had my book published 2.5 years ago and it might as well have disappeared from the face of the earth.
Right, right, right.
So,
Yeah,
so
it
I,
didn't. It was out there 2 weeks. The publisher didn't see a big, huge return. They moved on to the next thing. You know.
yeah, and this is not a small press problem. This is a publishing issue. There are assets sitting in every publisher's backlist or, mid-level writers or whatever, however you want to put it, where they're just no longer making the book available because it doesn't pay. And I
Right.
think they need to figure that out. If they could understand how, to the writer and to readers, books are evergreen. There's never not a
Yeah.
reason to have it for sale.
Mhm.
But distribution, the way we get hold of books, it's almost magic that a book that was published 2 years ago can even be bought in a bookstore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So unless it was a big hit, I am talking through my ass to a degree. Like I don't know the industry that well. I just been on, I've been on certain sides of the industry, but I do feel that also the diversification of funding part is huge. Can you imagine if
Yeah.
we were trying to survive on grants?
Well, I compare it to if we talk about this a lot. There's all these things that you mentioned in your list that are mentioned in this guy's list: diversification, pipelines, use of various assets,
Yeah,
or innovative use of different assets. And we talk about this all the time where, we do not want to get trapped being overly reliant on a single pipeline of
yeah, we
work
can't. Yeah,
because that's how you get screwed because
yeah,
that pipeline turns off and you are shit out of luck.
you got to scramble.
Yeah, and then diversification, I think about that, and there's multiple ways to think about that. As a ghostwriter, that could be my areas of expertise, right? I need to develop as many as I possibly can
Right.
to open myself up to more opportunities.
Yeah,
But also, it's not just about ghostwriting. I do some editing, different types of editing. I do all these kinds of things.
yeah,
And so I think diversification is something we already practice, multiple, developing multiple pipelines. And
yeah,
even there are times where we say we have to shut a pipeline off,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then assets, which is something that you do significantly better than I do, which you call it your pension projects, and
Hmm.
we'll talk about that more in depth, but later. Uh, um, but you're building assets as you go along, and they don't just fall away by the wayside.
Ideally.
They ideally you're constantly trying to innovate or modify them and find new ways to get them to generate some income.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
It's not the
so
kind
it's
of thing you can set and forget. It's the kind of
yeah.
thing you have to actively manage.
Mhm.
The idea is that your active management of assets which small presses have is
Mhm.
going to take fewer hours a week than actually continuing to create new books from a small press's perspective.
Mhm.
Like that kind of thinking is pretty normal. A lot of small presses, I don't think it's normal for small presses, but I think it's normal for small businesses. a lot of small presses, they're run by one or two people who get to the end of their life cycle, their work cycle, and go, okay, well, we've got all this stuff, but what do we do with it, and I think it's good that the guy from Tupelo is saying we should be doing this already. We should be already figuring out how this should work or can
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. And it's, and we talk about this with this podcast
Yeah.
that, we're coming up on what, episode 87, I think.
Yeah, so 3 segments
And
per episode, more or
yeah,
less. Yeah, a
three.
lot of segments.
So
Yeah.
we've got a lot of content out there, and we're finding that it's not so much when we release new content, all of a sudden we see this huge jump.
Hmm.
We see the jump throughout the week
Yeah.
because people are accessing, this sort of long tail of content that we
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
because they're finding something that meets their purpose in the moment
Yeah.
and say, oh, maybe this has value. I'm going to listen to it. Or maybe these two idiots are going to do something funny with John Irving, right?
Or maybe I'm listening to this accidentally.
Yeah. And, in a sense, we're using tech to create this long tail,
Yeah.
right? Because it's all online. And so I would get, there's the challenge of getting a book in someone's hands.
Yeah.
But, with print on demand and, ebooks and audiobooks and et cetera, there's more opportunities for even these small presses to, I think, affordably um, really expand the back catalog or bring back books maybe
Yeah.
that have faded out.
Yeah. I think so. And if the book's an obvious bestseller, and you're doing maybe 4 printings or something within a 2-year period or whatever, then you know that you've got a winner there. But if a book was a steady seller and then you completely removed all support and stopped printing it, then
Mhm.
you don't know what it could do. So I'm not saying small presses are doing anything wrong. I'm saying it's
Mhm.
good for them. In my opinion, it's good for them to be um, really thinking about how to be viable without government funding.
Mhm.
And when we
Yeah.
talked about this before, we're like, so what if a bunch of them fail? Is that a bad
Yeah.
thing? Because really, there's the big five in publishing. So the big five are like
Mhm.
Penguin Random House, Simon and Schuster. There's Macmillan. So there's five old multinational corporations that have hundreds of imprints and sell and distribute thousands of books. And then there's this weird middle space where there used to be all the imprints that were bought up by the big five, and now there's like two or three viables floating around that have maybe 50 to 100 books a year. And then there's thousands probably of small presses. I don't know the numbers, but I think there's a lot of
Mhm.
small presses who are churning stuff through based on a lot of funding from the government and different business practices that some of them are obviously making it viable on their own without funding and some of them aren't. And I think there's room for more in the middle. The big five are
Mhm.
not going to let go of what they got going on, but the small presses can become the new mid-sized presses that were bought up by the big
Yeah.
five. That's the
Yeah.
potential.
Yeah. And I would say that there's room for this in other domains of creativity,
Well,
right?
I hope so. Yeah, what do you
So
think?
my first thought, thinking about movies, right? Like the movies that I really like and that
Yeah,
really, really speak to me are like 90% independent
yeah.
movies, right? Band-Aid. If you've never seen the movie Band-Aid,
No,
highly recommend it.
I have not.
The Way, Way Back. If you've never seen it, it's got Steve Carell and who is it? Oh gosh, I can't remember her name, and I feel very badly for this, but two really great actors are in
Steve
this movie.
Carell wouldn't be in a low budget or what is
And
it,
this is a
independent?
low budget independent
Yeah,
movie,
cool.
so obviously they did it, they just wanted to do this movie. And
Yeah,
it's a great movie. And it's called The
cool.
Way, Way Back. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
And there I could get, I could go on and on and on, but I'm
yeah.
not seeing so many of these movies getting made anymore.
Hmm.
These were all pre-COVID, so I wonder if COVID had some
Oh,
impact.
maybe.
maybe
Yeah.
there's lag or something. But,
Mhm.
I see that, there's probably space for these types of things to start coming back. I
Yeah.
don't know what that would be in the art world. Maybe there's a mid-level, you have perhaps the LA and New York huge galleries, blah, blah, blah. Maybe this is creating space for sort of a little bit more mid-size type gallery experience. I don't know.
It's hard
But
to extrapolate because publishing is so specifically its own
yeah,
model. I mean, it's the only industry I know of that will do returns.
right.
If a bookstore buys a bunch of books and then can't sell them, they can send them back to the publisher and get a refund. Nobody else does that.
Yeah.
So it might be a bit too publishing specific to extrapolate to other creative industries, but it doesn't really matter. It's
Yeah.
happening there. I see it as an opportunity. Personally, if I was a small press owner, I would have been all over the business stuff anyways as a small press
Yeah.
owner.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
know. And it's, I guess, it's not to say that they weren't, that they didn't
no,
care business side because, they weren't, they wanted to sell books.
yeah,
But I think sometimes, and again, and I also don't like the loss of arts funding either. I don't want to say that this is all,
no, it's not. It's not a good
roses.
thing.
This is,
Yeah,
we're trying to make, lemonade out of lemons here.
yeah,
Um, but I think there is an opportunity to come up with some business models that are more sustainable and maybe more open to different creative voices, different creative modes, different
could
creative
be.
ways. As these people try to broaden the audience. Uh, you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, so part of me is thinking, well, then we get into hustle culture where they're just hustling like everybody else. Was this not the last bastion of publishing where funded, small presses could
mhm,
actually put out good literature and not care if it made a profit or not? That wouldn't be their primary motivation. But going by the quote you read, it actually saying more courage editorially, that really uh,
mm,
uh, piqued my interest because that means was there perhaps a bit of playing safe with the funding? Were they
mhm.
required to buy certain types of property, certain types of intellectual property and not others? Do they have more freedom now? Is
Yeah.
courage and freedom, kind of hand in hand? And so I'm curious. I'm very curious. I
Yeah.
think it's
Well,
interesting.
as a anecdotal side data point
Okay.
that is kind of nonsensical, but I'll throw it out there. So I have a subscription to PBS On Demand, right?
Okay.
So it's a streaming service like Netflix or anything
Yeah.
else. And the Republicans in Congress, signed by Trump, eliminated their funding, which they relied on for a very long
Oh,
time.
they eliminated PBS funding?
Eliminated
Shit.
PBS funding.
That's an American institution.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now they're really having to, refigure it all out, just like these publishers.
Mm.
And so we love to watch these different mystery shows and dramas that they have on. And what I've noticed is since they lost the federal funding, there is more swear words
Ha!
and people's body parts aren't getting like blanked out. And I wonder
Yeah,
if that's because they now have less rules.
I wonder.
They're
Yeah,
it's a little bit less, oh, we can't risk the funding. We can't go in this direction, we can't do this, we can't do that. And
yeah.
so I wonder if maybe there's, and again, this is about lemons out of lemonade, not
Mm,
saying it's a good thing.
yeah,
But maybe in that same sense, there's a little bit more freedom, uh, or impetus
yeah. I
to,
wonder. Yeah, that's a
you
good
know,
point because it's a bit of a golden handcuff, right? Funding can
mhm,
be. I tell you, my back went up when you read the bit about crowdfunding because I'm
mm,
like, are you fucking serious? You want your
yeah,
readers not only to buy the books, but also give you money to print the books? Like, get your shit together,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Yeah, no, there was that one caught me as well. There was one other psychological steadiness. Interpret that as you will. But
Mhm.
yeah, donations absolutely. PBS for example, is upping their donation game. They're trying to get
Mhm.
better at understanding that, which they've always done,
Oh,
but
they've
now,
always shilled for money in the
oh
breaks.
yeah,
Oh my God,
but
that's why
now
I never
there's
watch it.
yeah, but now there's more like we need it.
Yeah.
But I wonder if like crowdfunding and some of these other things, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation, and some
I think
things are going to
so.
work better than others. So
And the very fact that the guy said we've got 6 models that we're looking at, like that means that great, because that means to me that's an open mind. You're not looking at 2 models, you're
mhm,
looking at 6 to
mhm.
start with, and then you'll funnel down into the 2 that are viable, and you'll experiment. That's what I
Yeah.
would imagine.
So yeah, so Basta, this conversation, we've got to get. I think we should do an interview with some people in the movie business and get another artist in here and
That'd
get
be
some
great.
info from them. What's happening?
Well, let's get on that. But we're underachievers, so not
Yeah,
right away.
yeah. So everybody, we are going to live up to our brand.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have another beer.
Guaranteed. All right. All right, that's it from the business desk.
Good chat. Good chat.
Thanks for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. We'd love to hear how we're doing, so please leave a comment, join our chat page, or send us an email at giftedunderachievers@substack.com. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you like to download your podcasts. As always, please hit the share and or subscribe button. It really does help. And, as always, again, have an awesome day.